Karl Marx once participated in a London pub crawl. After 18 pubs he and his friends started throwing rocks at street lamps, at which point he was chased by 4 policemen who he managed to outrun. Deaf people don't make the achoo sound when they sneeze, meaning peer pressure influences what your sneeze sounds like. Canadian researchers watched 40 episodes of the Dr. Oz show and found that nearly 40% of the medical advice is not evidence-based, and 15% goes directly against evidence. Shortly after the death of Harambe the gorilla, his sperm was extracted from his corpse in order to preserve genetic diversity and prevent his bloodline from dying out. Polar bears often hunt walruses by simply charging at a group of them and eating the ones that were crushed or wounded in the mass panic to escape. Direct attacks are rare. Paper airplanes were not created to mimic real airplanes, they predated them. The Romans thought that eyelashes fell out from excessive sexual intercourse, and so it was especially important for women to keep their eyelashes long to prove their chastity. Despite how TV shows and movies depict it, New York only has a few alleys. Almost every alley scene is shot at the same location, Cortlandt Alley. CNN prepared a doomsday end of the world video to be broadcast by the last surviving employee. It was leaked by a former intern in 2009. New York City paid more for Central Park than America paid for Alaska. Queen Elizabeth II has seen 13 different UK prime ministers come into power, with the first one being Winston Churchill. 50 to 80% of oxygen on Earth comes from the ocean, mainly from phytoplankton. Italy's wealthiest man, Giovanni Ferrero, comes from the family that created Nutella spread and also produce Ferrero Rocher, Tic Tac mints, Kinder chocolate and Butterfinger bars. North America's Lake Superior contains 10% of the world's surface freshwater and holds the remains of 6,000 shipwrecks. The 26th President of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, regularly staged boxing matches in the White House and took on anyone he could, including professional boxers. Walruses are actually 18% blubber and 44% muscle, while certain species of moth can reach up to 72% body fat. Refried beans are only fried once. The misconception comes from a poor translation of frijoles refritos, which means well-fried beans. Titanic stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet funded Titanic's last known survivor, Milva Nadine's nursing home fees. The lifespan of blue whales is estimated by their earwax, which builds up in seasonal cycles somewhat like the rings of a tree. 150 meters below Naples, Sicily, there is a vast multi-level underground stretching over a half-kilometer, containing World War II cars, beds, conveniences, and other war relics. There is a polar bear jail in Canada that houses incarcerated polar bears that are guilty of being nuisances. The term dude was first used in the 19th century to mock men who were overly concerned with keeping up with the latest fashion trends. A wild turkey named Turk Tigler likely escaped an agricultural event and has been meandering through neighborhoods for the past year in Calgary, Alberta, much to the residents' delight. President Jimmy Carter became the parole officer of his daughter's nanny so she could work in the White House. Michael Jordan has been responsible for making more than 175 wishes come true for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. The score candy bar is supposed to mean brittle in Swedish, but that's with the O spelling, as it just means shoes. 8.2% of Norwegians eat tacos every Friday night. From the 1950s until the 1970s, vending machines were used at American airports to sell life insurance policies covering death in the event that the buyer's flight crashed. In Washington state, there are Bigfoot protection laws, stemming from the logic that if they exist they must be endangered. The woman in the woman yelling at the cat meme was actually arguing with a group of people who were accusing her of making up her husband's abuse, who almost blinded her. The US state that produces the most dairy is California, not Wisconsin. George Washington quarantined his troops during a smallpox outbreak, and several of his retreats can be attributed to his desire to avoid smallpox. The clown loach, a tropical freshwater fish, has a movable spine behind its eye that can stab predators as a defense mechanism. In 1969, a piece of fecal matter escaped containment and was found floating around the cabin of Apollo 10. The whole crew denied it was theirs. There is no constitutional requirement for a US state to hold presidential elections. A state legislature can theoretically just handpick its presidential electors. 3 different artificial sweeteners, saccharin, cyclamate and aspartame, were discovered as the direct result of scientists with poor hand hygiene. Nigeria drinks more Guinness than Ireland. In 2016, a monkey fell on a transformer at a Kenya hydroelectric power plant, resulting in the loss of 180 megawatts of power, which caused a nationwide blackout. The monkey survived and power was restored after 4 hours. Rats giggle when tickled, but only if they are in a relaxed mood. The X-shaped Confederate flag was no more than a battle flag and never the adopted flag of the Confederacy. During the cremation process of a 500-pound body, the corpse was so obese that its body fat set the crematorium on fire.
Somebody call 911!
Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, Walt Disney Studios was taken over and converted by the US Army into an anti-aircraft base in fears that Japanese bombers would soon reach Los Angeles. It remained the only time a Hollywood studio came under military occupation in history. The sun accounts for 99.86% of the total mass of a solar system. Tennis athletes run at least 2 times more distance than most active American football players in each of their respective matches. The most decorated World War II soldier received every medal of valor by the age of 21. After returning home, he then starred in over 40 Hollywood movies, including films about himself. When they were filming the 1967 Dr. Dolittle production was delayed because a giraffe stepped on its own. The reason blue raspberry is blue and not red is because flavored ice makers had an excess of red colored items and blue dye, but not enough to go with the blue coloring. Due to a loophole in the New Jersey state constitution, women in New Jersey could vote from 1776 to 1807, many years prior to women's suffrage in the United States. The Prohibition Party is still in existence and does still campaign on banning alcohol. USPS trucks are 30 years old. Children stop believing in Santa at around 8 years old. Errors by bumbling parents are the main cause of children losing their faith in Santa. Ostrich meat is red meat. Unlike other poultry, it is closer to beef than it is chicken. Bobby Olanzoni has played himself more times than a fictional character. The chunks of ice that break off of icebergs are officially called Burgee bits. A baby porcupine is called a porcupet. In 1943, the US imposed a ban on sliced bread as a conservation measure during World War II. It lasted less than 2 months. A woman who threw her poo out of her Tinder date's toilet window because it would not flush had to be rescued by emergency services after she got stuck trying to retrieve it. As well as being the largest mammals, blue whales are also the loudest, producing low-frequency pulses that can be heard from more than 500 miles away. In 1996, a group of scientists claimed to have found evidence of microscopic fossils formed by Martian primitive life billions of years ago on a meteorite discovered in Antarctica. John R. Brinkley, who convinced a bunch of people that having goat tentacles implanted in them would increase their virility. There is a province in Belgium called Luxembourg that is 70% larger than the actual country of Luxembourg. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is, by natural resources, the richest country in the world. The Philippines has the world's highest internet usage with a person averaging 10 hours screen time a day, while Japan has the lowest internet usage of a person only averaging 3 hours 45 minutes a day. Peter Jackson filmed all 3 Lord of the Rings movies in a span of 14 months. A Russian car magazine accidentally revealed a top-secret Russian submarine. When you drink too much grape soda it can make your poop green. The inventor of the Pringles can had his ashes buried in one. Whiskey was still produced during the Prohibition. Doctor prescribed medicinal whiskey. Red collar crime, when white collar criminals use violence to silence those investigating them. In North Korea men may pick between one of 15 approved hairstyles, none of which resemble Kim Jong-un's iconic haircut. Tennis balls are green/yellow because they were the easiest for viewers at home to see on their color TVs. Before that, they were white. If there was a Rubik's Cube for every single way you could arrange it, they could cover Earth's surface 275 times or form a tower 261 light years tall. Up until 2016, there was a pool in the middle of nowhere out in the Mojave Desert that anybody could go to. Grizzly bears have a sense of smell 7 times stronger than that of a bloodhound. Surgeon had to remove 78 forks and spoons from a woman's stomach, who had been complaining about stomach pains. The sperm whale have the largest brain of any creature known to have lived on Earth. The model for Snow White in the 1937 film is still alive today. The character Rocket Raccoon of the Guardians of the Galaxy was inspired by the Beatles' 1968 song Rocky Raccoon from their White Album. Lunchables were created over 30 years ago because bologna was losing popularity. Their goal was to dream up something that was livelier than sliced sandwich ready meat sealed in plastic. Led Zeppelin never had a #1 hit. The word alphabet is actually just the beginning of the Greek alphabet.